Hello, and welcome to the Naked Rooster Garage. My name is Ron. My disclaimer is that I'm an old, senile, disabled, half-crazy person. I may not remember the correct terminology, and I may say something wrong. My thought train might get derailed. I can be long-winded at times. I try to break things down so that even beginners can learn.
Welcome to the Naked Rooster Garage. My name is Ron, and for lack of a better word, or whatever, I'm going to be your host. Anyhow, I am no expert by any means. Most of the things I know about cars I've learned on my own. I don't always say the correct terminology. I either forget, have lose my train of thought or something. But I'm old and senile and half crazy, and that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Anyhow, the purpose of this channel is to give you knowledge, at least basic knowledge on whatever I can. Every car is different. You can usually find the information in your maintenance schedule in your owner's manual if you have one. If you don't have one, you can order it offline. You can also Google and find out what the maintenance schedule is. Most of the newer cars have the information built in, i.e. On this particular car, it's 2011 Chevy Impala. It has some vehicle information, and I can push a button and scroll over to it, and it tells me how much life is left on the oil. Is it accurate? I don't know. I try to change my oil before its recommended mileage or before its recommended life is ended. But a lot of that's going to depend on your driving, where you're driving, how you're driving. Like for example, if you have a lot of stop and go traffic, like say you're living in a city, that's actually harder on your oil and your engine than, let's say, like for me example, I work 80 miles away round trip, all highway, pretty steady speed. That's not as hard on your engine or your oil as what driving in a city, or for example, I'm in Kansas, and there's a lot of gravel roads, dirt roads, and stuff like that. If you have an owner's manual, it'll tell you what oil you should use. Sometimes there's a sticker on the vehicle. In this case, mine tells me right here on the oil filler cap. The purpose of your oil, the main purpose, is to keep your engine lubricated. Okay, you got bearings in there that's spinning. You got pistons with rings on it that's sliding up down through your cylinders. You got valves that are going up and down with push rods and all kinds of different things. Not going to get into detail on that, but basically what the oil does is it sits in the bottom of the pan. When you start the vehicle up, the oil pump starts sucking that oil up, pushing it up through ports and stuff like that, holes and tubes inside of the block, and it pushes up to the top of the engine. The oil drains back down through the engine, lubricating all of the parts that, all the parts that move for the most part. Okay, I was just trying to think of something that didn't move that the oil hits, but pretty much everything has moving parts in that area. But anyhow, so the purpose of the oil is to help lubricate those components and keep them from wearing. Okay, so inside your engine, you have metal to metal. Okay, you've got metal constantly rubbing against other metal, and what that's doing is wearing the metal as it rubs. Okay. Anyhow, so the oil helps to lubricate that so it's not wearing as much. And I say as much because it still does wear. It also helps in aiding with the transfer of the heat down to the bottom of the to the oil pan. And of course, because the oil pan sits low, it's semi-cooling from the air that circulates past it. So why is it important to change your oil? If you don't change your oil, or you don't change it regularly, or within the specified mileage or time, whatever the case is, I go by mileage. I know they say 6 months or 6,000 miles or whatever. Okay, if I got a vehicle sitting for 6 months and I just change oil on it, I'm not changing the oil at 6 months. All right. Anyhow, so again, changing your oil is going to be based on how your driving habits and the environment you're in. But the problem is if you don't change it within, at a minimum, the regular scheduled maintenance, is the oil starts breaking down. And it breaks down from the time you first start the engine after you change the oil. It'll start breaking down. And like anything, it cascades. When it first starts, it's all got all these lubricants in it and stuff, so it's doing good. And then over time, those lubricants are not quite as what they should be, so you're creating more friction in the engine, more wear in the engine. And then as it progresses, now keep in mind too that as it creates the wear, there's little fine metal shavings that's coming off these components. And those are going down to the bottom of your oil pan, sitting there mixing with the oil. And that's why you get a lot of sludge in the engines from people that, and I've seen it, people that hadn't changed oil 50,000 miles. The problem that with that is over time, as your oil breaks down and the microscopic, well, they're not really microscopic, but they're really fine particles of where the engine's wearing, the metal's wearing together, gets in your oil pan, and it starts getting thicker. So as it gets thicker, it actually causes more wear and tear on the vehicle, causes more wear and tear on your oil pump. The oil pump is pumping that sludge or that thick oil up to the top of the engine, and when it gets to the top of the engine, it's not draining down as fast or as well as it should be. Okay, trying to keep this simple. So in a lot of cases, and the longer you wait, let's say, okay, for example, a 50,000 mile vehicle that hadn't had an oil change in 50,000 miles, you take the valve cover off and you're going to see all kinds of sludge and junk up in the top of it. So what happens is that as that stuff gets thicker, the oil gets thicker, it will not only move slower through your engine, but it also will plug up some of the ports, the drain ports or the lubrication ports, however you want to call it or think of it. But anyhow, it eventually makes its way back down to the oil pan. Well, as that stuff gets thicker and more particles and stuff and the oil gets thicker and all that's together, it not only makes it harder for your oil pump to push that oil up to the top, but that oil is not going to seep down through, especially when you have micro clearances on many of the items that the oil needs to go through. So this is just a basic knowledge, changing your oil, give you some general information. Anyhow, changing oil is pretty much all the same. There's some variations, but the general principle of it is still the same. You drain your oil, take the oil filter off, put a new oil filter on, and refill the oil. In theory, it's really that simple. Or in practice, it's really that simple, I should say. However, there are some variations between manufacturers and engines. Pretty much all of them have an oil filter, oil dipstick where you check it at, and an oil filler cap where you put the oil into the engine. Some of them are actually labeled. This particular one, the oil filler cap, is labeled. It says what kind of oil I need to put in there. And some of my vehicles actually have the oil dipstick. This is where you check it at. Will actually have it labeled as oil or something like that. I'm not sure if it's industry standards or not, but I've noticed that pretty much all the oil dipsticks are yellow. I'm just going to assume that it is an industry standard to have that particular color. So anyhow, and back to the different manufacturer stuff. Like there's different sizes of oil filters. There's different placement of oil filters on the engines. A lot of it based on whether it's front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. Some of them may be in the front, some may be on the side. Some may be easy to get to, some may be hard to get to. Some of them you may need a special kind of oil wrench for. I think like the new Nissans, you got to have like a little adapter. Generally comes with the oil filter itself. It's supposed to be a one-time use tool because it's plastic. And without that little tool, you can't get the oil filter cover off. You know. Now, it's just my theory, but I think that the reason the manufacturers make these so difficult nowadays is because they want you to take it back to the shop and pay their Ford certified, Chevy certified, or GM certified, whatever, mechanics to do it. They want you to take it back to the dealership. And in turn, the dealership makes more money, blah, 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 blah. They spend more money on their cars to, you know, bring into their car shop dealership. Oil change is pretty simple and it's pretty easy. Draining the oil, pretty much all the same. There's like a plug on the bottom of the transmission, or not transmission, of the oil pan, and you just take that out, unscrew it, drain your oil. There are some tools you'll need, and I'll show you those here in a few minutes. I mean, it's nothing major. You could probably pick up all the tools for, well, prices went up, but anyhow, probably 20 bucks, you know. You could spend another, you know, 40 bucks on oil filter. And the price of that, of the materials itself, is going to be based on the type of oil you use. If you buy Royal Purple, I think it's like $19 to $20 a quart. You know, buy some cheap, you know, convenience store, gas station type of oil, it might be $4 and something a quart. I recommend you at least stick to one of the bigger brands, not one of the store brands. You do get what you pay for. I had another thought, and I had a senior moment. So hopefully I will come back to it. It's what happens when you get older. You sometimes lose your train of thought. I'm going to stop the video for a moment here. I'm going to grab the tools I need, and I got to get my jack up here, jack the front end up, and I use the floor jack. You can use whatever jack you have. The whole object of getting it up off the ground as much as you can is so you can get under there and take the drain plug loose. So I'm going to stop you for a minute. Change your oil at a minimum. You're going to need an oil drain pan, many different styles and shapes. I just like this one because I have caps I can put in there and move it around without sloshing it all over the place. You have the open top ones, no big deal. And you're going to need some sort of funnel. There's bigger ones than this, and there's smaller ones. I like an average size just because I can use it for the transmission, because this end here will fit in the transmission dipstick hole where you fill the transmission fluid. Unfortunately, most of the newer vehicles, you can't, not without some time-consuming effort, you can't really check the transmission fluid in newer vehicles. You're supposed to put it in the shop, and they got to, you know, drain it out and fill it back up to the required level. Older vehicles, always good to have a decent average size funnel. Of course, you'll need your oil, and you'll need your oil filter. Okay, if you don't know what kind of oil filter you need for your vehicle, you can go to an auto parts store and they'll look it up for you. Or if you're in Walmart, generally they'll have either a little computer screen, little thing that sits up in the oil aisle, or they'll have a book and you just look it up by year, manufacturer, model, and engine size. Of course, you will need to know your engine size. In this case, this is a 3500 V6. All right. And then you'll need some type of oil filter wrench. This is like a band oil filter wrench. You know, it'll adjust as you tighten it down to twist the oil filter off. Different vehicles, different oil filter locations will determine basically what kind of oil filter wrench you're going to have to use. Then you have this style that has a chain on it, same principle. You put this around the oil filter and you just hook the chain, okay, and twist it. It'll tighten itself down. I'm not sure if I ever used that, but I ended up with it from somewhere. I don't throw anything away. And then you have a strap wrench. These can be challenging to use because basically what you do is you fit that over the oil filter, and then you're going to have to pull it tight because it slides through the hole here. On this particular one, some of them actually has a groove down the handle that you have to put the strap in there. But anyhow, you have to keep the strap from moving at the same time that you're going to twist it. And what it does is it just torques up, and you twist the oil filter off. On this particular car, I have to use this one. This is just it's a band oil filter wrench, but you use a socket with it. You just throw it in there, and as you turn the ratchet, it actually tightens it up. Okay, and on this particular vehicle, I find this one easier, and I have, as you see, multiple ones based on the vehicle, because it is sort of recessed. And I'll try to show you a picture of that when I get under there to drain this, but like I said, every manufacturer is different. Okay, so